So next, I'm going to introduce Ray Wong. He's going to talk about software licensing as part of a digital business. He just got across the board to some really tremendous insights on digital business. Covers a ton of different spectrums. A little focused on the monetization aspect today, but if you haven't read his book, I highly encourage you to do it. If you guys are on Twitter, I really encourage you to follow him. For me, it's just really dizzying to see how he gets around the world at an alarming rate and how much he travels. But all those different experiences and travels just open up a world of perspectives that we are fortunate enough to have him share. So with that, Ray.
Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing? Guys, wake you up. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about digital business, digital transformation, why software monetization makes a lot of sense. We're putting all that together. It was cool to see you guys poll that growing new business revenue, new business models is probably the #1 thing on your list, because that's what we're seeing at the heart of a digital business. And that's really why organizations in this room and everywhere else are disrupting digital businesses. Now, there's a stat you've seen before, because many of you have been here before, is the fact that we talk about all these companies that are being disrupted, how 52% of the Fortune 500 have been gone away. This is even more interesting. Think about every organization you're in. Think about your top competitors. The top 3, top 5 are taking 40 to 70% of market share and 40 to 77% of the profits. Those who've built a digital business model are the ones that are driving that change. This is not a digital divide. This is a winner-takes-all market. And if you can get those digital business models, those new revenue, that new software monetization in place, you are in place to be able to go and disrupt new businesses. And this is what's happening. If you're a software company, you want to be in hardware. If you're a hardware company, you want to be in software. If you're a chipset manufacturer, you're actually selling subscriptions. Lots of weird stuff is happening. Everybody is in everybody's space, and that's what makes it more exciting. Now, I need your help. I want you to yell out loud. I want you to tell me what you think the hottest performing stock was in 2010. I'm going to put up some names to help you out here just to make it easy. Let's see here. So which one of these was the top performing stock in 2010? Yell out loud. Netflix, Apple, Amazon. What else? None of them. What else? Well, they're hurting right now. We know that. What else? Google, Tesla. All right. Got your favorites. What? Say that again? All right, cool. Are you guys ready? This is, all right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. The top performing stock in 2010. This pizza tastes horrible. Come on. This was $11, a 2,500% improvement since 2010. I really tried to get their CEO to come speak at my conference. He's like, no, I'm done. I'm retired. This is the best run ever in the market. I'm like, all right, fine. How do they do it? Think about it. What happens at 5 p.m. on a Friday? Anyone have a Domino's app? This is a very interesting thing. At 5 p.m., it asks you, would you like a pizza delivered to your house by what time, right? They have gone digital. They have monetized their app, right? Think about it. This is a pizza company. They are more digital than many of you. Right? It's not just the channels, it's the business model. They put it all into one place. And their ability to actually not just change their business to be more customer success oriented, allow you to track where the pizza is at any given point in time, order from Alexa to any other way. They've built it. They've done it. And they weren't a tech company to begin with. That's the thing. So when we search for new revenue models, new monetization models, this is a great example to say, hey, look, if Domino's could do it, we as tech companies, we as manufacturers of cool tech, we as manufacturers of pharma, like, we should be able to figure this stuff out. Right? And this is why it's so important. We've been talking about this for a long time. This is a post-sale, on-demand attention economy. Everything after the sale is more important. It's all the stuff around installations and warranties and all the management of that, right? That becomes important. The renewals, right? The experience afterwards. Selling a product is just an excuse to start everything else, right? And when we think about on-demand, we're buying smaller and smaller slices of products, services, experiences, outcomes, even insights. And more importantly, this is an attention economy. If I'm not capturing your attention or saving you time, you don't care. You are trading loyalty for convenience, loyalty for value, loyalty for status every day. And you have to earn your customer's business every second, every interaction. That is the big shift. And this is why software monetization is so important. And even more important than that is something we're going to talk about, which we call extreme EBITDA, right? And we'll get into that. So this problem with extreme EBITDA is so pervasive, right? You know it. You've seen how your CFOs act. You know how your CEOs build models to actually report to the street, right? So I'm sitting at a meeting with Clay Christensen, and honestly, this is the 5th time in a year where I actually had this meeting, right? And he's presenting, and it's the first time my battery died on my phone. And as Jam was saying, as you know, I tweet a lot, and if you follow me, you'll see that, right? So my phone is dead, and I'm actually looking at the slide. And Clay has said this at least 4 times. He said this at least 4 times, and he said, the problem with companies today is that the profits that are coming that used to go back to innovation are being redistributed to shareholders, to stock buybacks, to dividends. And you have no money left for innovation because the street has taken every piece of it away from you, right? And I go back and looked at this and I'm like, hey, it's actually true, right? There's this huge amount of money, all the profits you make, a lot of it isn't coming back to new products, right? So leaving you with this tough thing, what we call extreme EBITDA, right? Now, if you're in the software business, you all know this, the rule of 40, right? You can either grow massively if you want in terms of increase your free cash flow margin, or you can figure out how to create revenue growth. And if it adds up to 40, nobody cares, right? You lose as much money as you want. We've seen lots of companies do that. You see some names up here. This is always fun. This is the Pacific Crest Securities Report. I love this thing, right? So you see this, and it's okay, so that's kind of it. That's what a growth company is. That's what a unicorn is. Hardware manufacturers, you used to have this. We know that. Chipset manufacturers, we used to have this. We're down to a few players. And that's really what happens. We're evolving. Now, here's the other interesting thing. If you think about the cost of capital, it is effectively 0 in many places. If you put 100 yen in the bank in Japan, what do you get 3 years later? Anybody? 50? No, 96. It goes backwards, guys. It goes backwards. They have negative interest rates in Japan. They're barely at 0 at the moment, okay? That's what I'm talking about. So capital isn't the issue. Actually, what's happening is the same institutional investors who are asking you for these kind of margins are actually investing in 3 people and startups anywhere in the world to go beat the crap out of you. Right? It's the same investors. They're willing to give them 50 million, 100 million, 400 million to disrupt your business. They're the same investors, but they want you to manage EBITDA. They want you to make sure that there's a return for them. So it's the craziest thing. They're betting against you, right? So that adds and compounds to the problem. And so you're left with mergers and acquisitions, or you're left with figuring out how to build inorganic growth. Let's take hardware. You guys are down to like 6 players in every category, maybe 3, because it's so expensive to build plants. It's so expensive to produce this stuff, get it out the door, distributed. People get excited like when they do mergers and acquisitions. I was on a merger, I won't tell you who the company was, but they bought someone, and the guy comes in and it's like, hey, if we move every cubicle off by 5 inches, how much can we save? You guys have those commercials. You guys have seen this, right? It's crazy, right? It's all about margins. Right? So the question is, how do we disrupt this? How do we change our mindset and break extreme EBITDA? Now, let's think about this. When we started out, right, what's very interesting, think about every company, every mission. We started out with an awesome purpose, right? What's the mission? How do we get there? How are we going to change the world? Where are we going to disrupt? Then, if you think about the life cycle of a company, we figured out, hey, what's the best team? Where can we get the best talent? We bring everybody together. Then we focused on how do we get the best offering? What's the best product, the best service mix? Then we focused on the best markets. Which customers can we go after? Where can we serve? And then we get successful, right? And then something happens is all the MBAs show up, right? You go public, and then all we worry about is margin, right? Now, how do we break that and disrupt that? That's where software monetization comes in. This is why this is an important area, because when we think about new business models and what happens, the question is, how do we actually take a product and turn it into a service? How do we take a service and turn it into an experience? How do we take an experience and turn it into an outcome? That becomes very important, and that's where we're seeing this. Now, this is at the heart of every digital transformation effort. We just did a survey to look at this, and this survey for about 281 people, actually let me pull it up, this survey with about 281 people really comes across all different industries. Everything from the pizza manufacturer to you guys, right? And the focus of digital transformation, you'll see, is it's actually very interesting. It's being driven by a lot of folks, right? But the important thing is, the first thing is, how do we actually figure out how to get a strategy in place? You can't do it without a business model. This monetization piece is the heart of that business model. And you can see these folks actually started out with a big number. The second thing that's important is when you look at this is, have these efforts actually led to quantifiable ROI? Yes, if you had a business model. And this is what's really interesting here. When we did this survey 2 to 3 years ago, the answer was no. They had no clue what they were doing, right? Now, when they actually have a business model in place, when they're thinking about the monetization aspect, they do. Take a company like, so I met someone from Philips Healthcare, right? I met with their boss like 4 years ago. There is a monetization model on the back end. That is pretty wild, right? We're sitting and we met with a rental and leasing company. They sell big equipments from jackhammers to lifts. They have a monetization model, right? And to do this, they actually enabled IoT in all their equipment. Right? Jacks as a service, right? Lifts as a service. Instead of sending 23, 30 different cranes or lifts to a job site, they send 10 now because it's optimized, but it's a subscription on usage. Those are the kind of things that are actually driving this type of transformation, right? So now who leads this? Lots of people do. It's not just one, right? Who in this room is from the IT side? Look at that, all right? Who in the room is from the finance side? Who in the room is from the product side? All right, is there a digital team here? Anyone from legal? Okay, just curious. You can see there's lots of different ways to look at this. And it is a team effort to get to software monetization in order to be successful. Now, what's the top 3 reasons to do this? I want to work with my customers better, right? The second reason, I want to figure out what I can do in terms of figuring out a competitive advantage. But it's the third reason that's important here. It is driving new business models, right? That links back to what we saw in the survey in terms of what people are trying to do. We're trying to create new revenue streams. So this is real. 281 people talking about this. Now, what do you get? It's hard. We got to find talent to think different. We're talking about moving to subscription models. We got to think about how to deal with change and challenges in the organizations. How do we actually make that possible? And more importantly, we all have limited budgets. But there are ways around this, and this is what we're talking about today throughout the whole day, which is this monetization models. Differences between licensing, pricing, how do we get there to be successful? So why is this important? Well, we are in the middle of this transformation, right? All these new technologies are part which actually give us opportunities for monetization. If we think about what's trending out to 2025, right? We got these big things, IoT, it's amazing, right? We've talked last year about IoT and IoT enablement, right? What that means, we'll give you some examples later. 3D printing, it allows us to change the way we look at manufacturing. It's an additive process, right? You disrupt supply chains. You bring everything to the individuals, right? You could actually subscribe and have a machine and actually produce output right there. People are doing it in hospitals, dental offices. People are doing it in spare parts and MRO in terms of maintenance, repair, and overhaul places. This is happening right now, right? So we see that. And we also talk about things like mixed reality, changing the way we look at how we actually service large capital equipment. On the field service side, this is something people are paying for. They're paying for different types of service models. In fact, the service technician may never ever have to get there, but all you have to do is put on a mixed reality, a Google Glass, some kind of augmented Oculus glasses, and you go in, right? And you have someone behind you actually providing you service capabilities with you all the way. On all those types of possibilities. If you think about what's happening, robotics, right? People are subscribing to specific services in terms of this. This is a bank, right? Where there are no tellers, right? This is it. Now it's in China and is the second largest bank in China. And it's a little scary, right? I do want to see someone. I mean, but versus an ATM machine, would you rather have the robot? I don't know. But this is where they're headed. Now think about it. If you're in a country where it's aging, you've got declining populations over time, like Japan or China or other places in Asia, or even in the Western Europe, this actually makes sense, right? If we think about what's going on with 5G, 5G is amazing. 5G is not about better bandwidth. Honestly, we're not going to get better bandwidth in the traditional sense, but we get different lanes of communications all at the same time. Think of it as your highway, where you might have a 5-lane highway where one lane's dedicated for emergency services, the other one is to pay as you go in terms of being able to get fast track or ability to pass through traffic, and then you get 3 other lanes that are actually providing different sets of services. The ability to sense and respond and deliver services this way gives you new ways to monetize revenue. Gives you new ways to build sense and respond digital feedback loops. These are very important as we think about how we actually deliver future services. It's like telemedicine, right? Telerobotic surgery. The ability to have redundancy is really useful, right? As you can imagine. So that's kind of thing. And there's blockchain, right? Blockchain, Bitcoin. These are creating new opportunities, not in the traditional Bitcoin, but in ways that we look at smart contracts so that we can set conditions for actually projects to actually happen when they're met. Those smart contracts and the ability to verify trust actually create new opportunities, right? To monetize and actually add trust and add changes in interactions when we go forward. And then, of course, we've seen the impact of AI helping us find patterns, helping us augment our intelligence, helping us automate different sets of processes, helping us identify risk and risk models. This becomes very, very important. Now, of course, we're Constellation Research, and we look at the world as an astrochart. And in this astrochart, we actually look at the level of organizational adoption, and we also compare that with the business impact. And when we put those together, this stuff is table stakes. The stuff in the L is stuff that you should already be doing, right? So cloud computing, big data, fog computing, all those other areas, they make a lot of sense. These are on the edges. Give you some time to take a picture there. And as you see that shift, right, the stuff that's actually disruptive, that's giving us new opportunities, is the stuff here in the middle, right? And what this does is, think about it. Data lakes are interesting, IoT platforms are interesting, robotic engineering is interesting, anticipatory analytics, if we're thinking about blockchain, those new technologies are giving you an opportunity to create new offerings. Right? Every time an exponential technology comes into play, it gives us an opportunity to change how we deliver to customers, and it also changes the way we monetize our services. Cloud computing was the biggest factor for us over the last 10 years, going from very, very large one-time purchases to ongoing subscriptions, changing our business model. If we think about the impact of, we talked about IoT, we're putting sensors that create feedback loops. Those feedback loops help us identify what features are being used, what features are not being used, why they're being used, the context for that's being used, and that creates another opportunity. And then, of course, we can think about how these new business models. Now, this is the heart of the discussion, right? What do these new business models look like? Well, we told you a long time ago, product companies are giving products away for services. Most product margins are horrible. But think about it. Free cell phone with a 2-year services contract, right? That's basically giving the product away for services. Apple just stopped counting the number of iPhones they're shipping. That's because they're going down, but that's a different problem. But you can see that, right? Stock is taking a massive hit, right? But the point being is that's one level. Services companies are giving services away for experiences. What happens when you get to the 10th level of Angry Birds? You pay. What happens when you get to a gigabyte of storage? You pay, right? We're going from freemium to premium. And in that process, we're learning from the customers what they're doing, what features they're using, and along the way, that iterative loop then helps us figure out what new features to roll out. And experience companies are giving experiences away for outcomes. Think about it. New business models are happening right now. I'm going to give you everything for $1,000 a month. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And by the way, I can even give you peace of mind. If you want 98% uptime, we'll charge you a little bit more. And that's how it's happening. This progression has been going on for quite some time. And it's our ability to bring these different business models together that helps us. So the question is, how do we build new business models? How do we think about new revenue streams? And then, of course, how do we monetize them? So a long, long time ago, you might have seen this, we talked about medical equipment, right? And medical equipment is interesting because if you think about the business model for this machine, it's very different than how people sell the machine. So a great example for here is these machines go for $1 million a piece. They're imaging machines, right? So they sell you the machine. Then they sell you installation. Then they sell you training. Then they sell you warranties, right? And then they try to upgrade you. Does this sound familiar in your life? Okay, so by the time you're done, maybe this thing costs you about $5-6 million, okay? Something like that over 8 years. Well, the new model actually is built differently. Think about what happens when we actually don't pay for the machine up front in that traditional sense. If you're the operator, all you care about is one metric, revenue per patient scan per day. That's all that really matters, right? So what that means is you just want uptime. And you're willing to pay for uptime. So if I change the offer to $3.5 million for 80% uptime over the next 8 years, that's not a bad deal. In fact, if you want 90% uptime, we'll do it for $4.5 million. And what that means is if that machine ever goes down, I will be there. I am monitoring that machine. I am making sure that machine is always up. I'm proactively servicing it. I'm trying to figure out different changes in terms of comparisons between why does one machine do better than another. So for example, hey, why does the machine at Stanford outperform the machine at Mass General? Why do the machines in London actually outperform the machines in the US? Why do community hospitals actually do worse than academic medical centers? Maybe it's reimbursement rates. Maybe it's performance. But I'm starting to figure it out. And by the way, we launched this awesome feature, but nobody cares. Nobody's ever used it. Is it because we didn't train them? Is it because it's an awareness issue? Is it because the feature's hard to use? And what feedback do we get back from the customers as a competitive advantage? We are in the data business. We are in the data business. We are using that data to change the way we develop products, to figure out how we optimize. We can figure out which supplier screwed up, which is the part that breaks all the time. Maybe we actually need to renegotiate our procurement contract on that part, right? Or which team delivered the most faulty code, right? We gotta know, we gotta fix that down. Is it the US team, the Romanian team, the Israeli team, the Mexican team, the Canadian team? I don't know, I wanna find out. And we can actually start figuring that out. And that makes it very, very powerful, right? So these new models are in front of us, and it allows us to use data to change the way we look at not just software monetization, but entire operations are being built against this, right? Cloud software models, great example, right? When we move to the cloud, what do? The onus is on you for uptime. The onus is on you for security. The onus is on you for getting upgrades out the door. Right? Just like that example that we have with the medical imaging device, it's the same problem. We have to go out and figure out how to make sure that we have built something that is going to be up there. And if someone's going to renew our contract or subscription, we've got to make sure that customer success management is there. So all that comes back together on the cloud side. And of course, we got new stuff with chipsets. Think about what happens when we get to quantum. Is it there? Is it not there? Is it there? No, I'm just kidding. So for those who understand quantum, right? But the point being is it's going to change because when we buy chipsets, maybe we're not buying chipsets anymore. Maybe I'm buying compute power and I'm paying for kilowatt per hour on compute power, and that's it. All I care about is kilowatt per hour. Wow, what does that mean? Right? So is my code efficient? Is my hardware efficient? Is my energy source efficient? That's a very, very different calculation for pricing. And it's a very, very different type of licensing model as well, right? So we can see those shifts occur. Now, one last one I love to do, because this is just fun, and since half of you are new, I can do this. Let's talk about IoT quickly. There's no slide for this, so imagine the lonely toaster. And this is my favorite example for explaining IoT and monetization. So who here in this room fills out the warranty card for their toaster? Anybody do that? Raise your hands. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Holy crap! There's more people that have filled out this warranty card than in a 10,000 person keynote. This is amazing. We have a very special group of people here. So it is very rare for someone to fill this thing out, right? But you might for a refrigerator, or for a washing machine, or for a more expensive appliance. But the fact that someone, oh, so he's like, no, I'd never do that. Okay, so it's possible that you might do that. All right, so the challenge is, if you are the manufacturer of that device, what happens when you get the first phone call? It's horrible. It's negative NPS. Why? Because it's like, it's broken. I can't figure out how to use it. What's going on here, right? Your first phone call is a negative experience. And the pro person on the other end, or the person in the contact center, is trying to look up who they are. They're trying to figure out what they bought, when they bought it. Are they lying to me? Is it real? What's going on? How much did they pay for it? You have no data. You have nothing. And you are wasting 20 minutes a call, right? That's horrible. But let's change the offer a little bit. Maybe I can change your behavior. If you buy this toaster or washing machine or refrigerator, and I tell you, just connect it to the internet. It's simple. Give us an email, a phone number. That's it. Tell us how much you paid. Just give us 3 pieces of information. We will monitor this device. For the life of the device, and so long it's connected to the internet, we will monitor the device. If there's a problem, we will send you an update. If there's a recall, we'll let you know. And 30 days before this device breaks, we will give you a warning to let you know it will break. Now, how many of you would now register? Raise your hands. All right, I got 60, 70% of you. You see what I just did? I gave you customer data. You have install-based data, right? You can monitor it. Now we can do some interesting things. So, all right, so let's see. I'm going to pick on you. I think you're one of the speakers, but I don't know who you are. So what's your name? What? Dale, I got a question for you. Dale, if I told you your toaster's going to break in 30 days, and I'm going to send you a brand new one, exact model, you know, for the same price you paid before, and it's been 8 years, not like this toaster broke right away, so it's been 8 years, would you actually take the offer? You probably would. All right, give Dale a round of applause. I'm going to pick on you. What's your name in the red? Craig? Okay. If I told you that your toaster's about to die in 30 days, and I can give you a brand new offer, for 10 cents a month for the next 8 years, you can have toast as a service. If that toaster ever dies and ever goes down, I will make sure you get a new one. Would you sign up for 10 cents a month on a toaster? Sure. All right, he's in. Give him a round of applause. Thanks, Chris. So you see what we're doing here. This gets very interesting. Soon, I can actually create new types of offers. Right? I can say, hey, if you've got like a regular, you know, a Maytag, GE kind of kitchen, we will put everything in, your oven, your refrigerator, your range, your microwave, your toaster, for $100 a month for the next 5 years. We'll just take care of it. Don't worry about it. And if you want to go up level to a Bosch or KitchenAid or GE Monogram, that'll be $200. And if you want to go to an even higher level of Gaggenau, Miele, you want to go down that line, fine, that'll be $400 a month, and we will take care of it. Now, this sounds hilarious, right? But if you live in Canada, anybody live in Canada? So if you live in Canada, the way you buy air conditioning is that way today. You don't pay for an HVAC unit. You buy a power contract. You buy a power contract for 4 to 5 years, right? And they make sure that that unit never goes down. This is where we're headed, right? So we saw the pizza guys, we see the toaster, we now see this in HVAC, right? We're in tech. We should be able to do better than this, right? We should. It's even easier. We're in digital, and that's what makes this very powerful. Okay, so what are we doing? Well, the point here is we've got to figure out how to get software monetization in place. That's what you're going to figure out here for the next couple of days. You're in the middle of it. Sometimes when we're sitting there building products, I used to be a product manager, right? You're just knee-deep in it, right? And you forget to say, hey, what are other people doing? And that's the beauty of this conference, right? You get a chance to see how other people are doing it, find a way to figure out how to apply it to your organization. And the important thing is to really think about the software monetization life cycle that we actually have, right? First one, we got to figure out what the entitlements are so we can manage them, right? What are we giving people, right? What is that worth? Then we got to protect the crap out of this IP, right? go to different countries and you're like, how did they get our software? How did they get our goods? This stuff leaks like crazy, right? So what can we do to protect that IP? Because you spend a lot of time building it, taking it to market, raising money, getting it perfected, testing it. We got to make sure it's there. Then we got to make things easy for people to consume. If it's hard, nobody's going to do this. And that's why it's so important to deliver self-service, the ability to actually activate things on your own, right? And the ability to actually give people choices as they get to different consumption levels, right? How do we actually give them the ability to add users, to add utilization? And more importantly, to change the metrics and help them rethink how they want to view what's important to them. Kind of like the example we talked about with the imaging device. And then once we have that in place, we want to give people choice, right? There are different business models that are there, right? Some people are going to stay on premises. Don't force them in the cloud. That's fine. If they want to go to cloud, help them figure out what that looks like. I mean, for most of us, it's been a 36 to 48 month amortization model, right? If they were going to pay X, we divide it by 36 or 48, and that's what their cost is per user per month, and then we figure out the discounts. Oh, you didn't know that? Just kidding. No, but that's the secret behind that, right? So how do we go out and do something simple like that? And then, of course, while we're doing it, we have an opportunity to collect real-time data, right? Get that information to change the way we offer products, to change the way we figure out and how we prioritize product development and offering management, and more importantly, use that to be a competitive advantage, right? We can actually take that install base data, which is the most important data you have. Most people forget this. That is the most important data you have because it not only tells you what you have and where it is, it also allows you to figure out actually what you can build next and where your competitors are, right? You get an idea of what's connected to what, and suddenly you can figure out, hey, we're missing a feature that someone has, and they're gaining ground on us. Right, so there's a lot of insights there. And then, of course, how do we automate the worst part of our job, which is compliance and enforcement? Right? Can we automate that to a point where we hit threshold levels? Great customer, right? Pays the bills on the time, been with us for 5 years, and they're over-licensed by 10%, right? We can be nice, we can nudge them, we can think about ways to do that, right? So how do we actually build that kind of thing into the overall monetization lifecycle? All right, real quick. We talked about where this is going. This is a digital business. We are seeing massive digital transformation. Number one thing here for us is really about how do we create new types of revenue? How do we build new types of business models? All this exponential technology is sitting in front of you. It's right there. Those are great opportunities to think about the overall life cycle of organizations. We are under extreme pressure in trying to disrupt EBITDA, but there are options out there. And when we use this exponential technologies, when we use software monetization, we can actually find ways to grow in an organic way and actually stem the tide on a lot of the M&As, but more importantly, create new opportunities to monetize your business models. Thank you very much. Yeah, we can take questions. I think people are roaming with mics maybe, and if you want to do questions, we can do that.
We can't all be this shy, guys. I have faith that someone has questions.
This one?
Thank you.
Oh, the one with my name on it. Oh, okay. Yeah, here. I'm easy to find. Just type my name in Google. You can track where I am.
Hey Ray, my name is Pavlik. Great presentation, thank you. So question is the install base. I agree with you. If a company has got a $200 billion install base, which is a reality, and they've been selling in traditional model, what are your thoughts about reinventing themselves in migrating some of their install base from a traditional perpetual business to a new license model, which is well embedded in the traditional mindset?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. How do we actually do that piece? And I think one way is to actually transition the software update process to be a download self-service process in the cloud, which allows them to get into the habit of actually creating those updates. And then the second piece is actually transitioning how they actually connect back for support, giving them a facility to actually connect in when they need to. Of course, there's privacy concerns depending on the countries you're in, but connect into to actually do an assessment. So any way you can get them to actually connect and get off on premises to actually connect back into the cloud gives you an excuse to actually start that process. You may want to do that for some big updates, especially for security and regulatory updates. That way you don't have to ship disks, you don't have to ship new hardware, you can actually have them do the download and then walk them through that. And that's your entry point to get them to move over. Most people will say no if you don't do that. By providing that, anyone can download something, they can test it, make sure it's safe, there's no viruses, they're going to want to do that as well. So that's the way we've seen commonly people do that.
Over here.
Oh, over here, okay.
Okay, so my question is, this message resonates real well with me. I mean, I like the fact that you're right at the grassroots explaining how the transformation is happening. Do you see anything trying to buck this trend? And what I mean by that is, with every new business model introduced, right, free software from a hardware company in order to sell more hardware products or services, is there something in the industry that's trying to disrupt this digital business transformation?
Well, the way people are using the word digital is probably very broad, kind of the way we looked at cyber, or kind of the way we look at other large trends. But when we think about the business models that are being disrupted by new business models, which I think is what you're asking, if we look at what happens in decentralization, study blockchain very carefully. Because what blockchain is doing is it's creating a massively decentralized environment for not only how we pay for stuff and how we procure. A quick way to understand how blockchain may look like is, well, it's going to sound funny, spend a few hours in the dark web because it's actually very, very educational to help you understand how trust works, how people look at identity, why the importance of zero-knowledge proofs are going to play a role in terms of transactions in an anonymous fashion, and more importantly, how smart contracts are going to work. Because that disruption, and you can go back to a thing Doc Searls wrote way back under Project VRM. So if you go to Harvard, Berkman Center, Project VRM, they had this notion that you lay out all your conditions first, and when they are met by a whole bunch of different suppliers, a transaction then occurs. So I'll give you a great example. I probably fly 240 days out of the year, right? This is kind of rare being home, so thank you. This is awesome. And so if I said, look, I have this requirement for flights, they have to be under $700, I can only travel on this date, I want this hotel room, and I can only pay this amount, and I want a certain type of level of hotel room, and I can only do X for a rental car, but I want this or a lift. And I put my requirements out there, and 10 different vendors said I can meet each one of these differently, and one contract gets closed. That's where we're seeing this type of disruption. Massively decentralized, highly personalized, and you're going to see more and more of this as blockchain and Bitcoin move forward.
Any other questions? Apparently, I don't need a mic.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it, man.